Okay guys, it's time. Time to finally evaluate the last main faction in Fallout 4. And that faction is, of course, the Minutemen. Yes, that's right, the do-gooders of the Commonwealth. The most good guy faction in the whole Fallout universe. So let's do it. Let's truly see if the Minutemen have good equipment.
My fellow Americans, I think we all know where this is going, so let's just skip to the end.
Let's see if a united Commonwealth could truly make a real difference in power.
Hey man, I don't think we've met, but your time is impeccable. Preston Garvey, Commonwealth Minutemen.
And let's truly discuss if the Minutemen do have the best base in Fallout 4.
Did it. I've been watching the Minutemen fall to pieces for so long, this is really something.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Before I continue with the video, I think a big thank you is in order. The Pagan Min video has blown up literally overnight, and I just thank all of you for the support the video got. Also, thank you for anyone who's watched my Still Wakes the Deep review. I truly appreciate it, as I love that video. That video defines what I want to do with the channel, and I just appreciate anyone who's checked it out. If you want to know a bit more about where the channel's going in the future, I have made a community post, but I'll also be talking about it at the end of the video, so stay tuned. Also, why haven't you subscribed yet? Subscribe now with the bell on and the thumb up. Thanks guys, appreciate it. The Minutemen may well be the most simple and easy faction to understand in Fallout 4. They simply want a united Commonwealth under one flag, that flag being the Minutemen one. Without a doubt, the Minutemen are the objectively good guy faction for Fallout 4, as they really just do want the best for the people of the Commonwealth. And to be honest, they're the only faction that's really advocating for a safe and peaceful Commonwealth. Now we need to get one thing clear, we need to evaluate the Minutemen at their best, because if we don't do that, if we evaluate them before the player gets involved, well then the Minutemen are dead. The Minutemen died in the museum with Preston Garvey. So for the purpose of this video, we will be purely evaluating the Minutemen at their strongest, at their best. So this does sadly mean we won't have a before and after comparison like we do in normal videos, but other than that, the video will be the same. The Minutemen in terms of weaponry have a great arsenal of weapons. Pipe pistols, rockets, machine guns, and even some to little laser weaponry. They even have at least one mini nuke in Castle Base. It is important to note that while the Minutemen have been cited using these weapons, they don't normally use many laser weapons. However, there is one specific laser weapon that the Minutemen are seen using quite a bit. Well, at least their more experienced soldiers use it a lot. That weapon being the laser musket. The laser musket does around 30 damage and can be fired using 2 short shots or 1 charged up long shot for more damage. It can also be sold for around 40 bottle caps. Out of all 4 main factions' 4 main weapons, this one does have the lowest sell value. So is the laser musket the worst weapon out of the 4? Well, yes and no.
Charge your gun, Fry. Oh, right.
When we look at something like fire rate, certainly it is the worst, but when we look at something like damage, the laser musket can often pack quite a powerful punch if it's in the right hands. Of all the mainline faction weapons, it also does shoot the furthest. It's important to note that the Minutemen also have an arsenal of mines, grenades, and other throwable weapons. Now in terms of numbers, we have to actually look at how many settlements the Minutemen can have altogether. In total, the Minutemen can have up to 30 settlements, with the base amount of people in one settlement being 10, however that can be extended up to 42, which is crazy, because this would mean there would be 1,260 men within the Minutemen. And screw it, we'll add on 10 more just for the people who survived the original extinction event for the Minutemen, such as Ronnie and Preston. Now the Minutemen is made up of 2 different groups of people: farmers, who are protected by the Minutemen and will occasionally fight for the Minutemen, and Minutemen themselves, who are trained soldiers. Now, if there are 42 settlers per settlement, we can assume that at least 12 of them would be trained Minutemen soldiers. So this brings our trained Minutemen number up to 360, and then plus the 10 Minutemen who survived the extinction of the Minutemen originally, so that brings our number of the Minutemen up to 370. And then of course that means that there are around 890 normal settlers slash civilians within the Minutemen. This means that there are around 300-ish laser muskets. I think this because I don't think that every single trained Minutemen uses a laser musket, and they seem pretty hard to make. I think there are around 300 active duty Minutemen, and I think being a Minuteman is a very hands-on job. Now, what I mean by active duty is this could be anything from fighting, to doing supply runs, to protecting settlements at any given time. It's also really important to note that the Minutemen's armor, for the most part, is pretty shockingly terrible, with the Minutemen pretty much just wearing whatever they feel like on the day, and the farmers wearing basically farming clothes. If you thought that the railroad's homemade armor was bad, then the Minutemen pretty much have no armor whatsoever, other than the general, and other than some in particular Minutemen who are smart enough to make their own armor. The Minutemen go for this more cowboyish look, which is a cool look, and it looks great for their friendly faces, but it doesn't look great when you put 2 holes in them and you realize that, oh shit, they're gonna die real quick. Oh, and in terms of how much weaponry the Minutemen have, I would say there's around 1,800 guns that the Minutemen actually own, which is a hell of a lot. I also think the Minutemen have around 30 sets of power armor, give or take. Now, let's reveal the final stats for the Minutemen's equipment and numbers. Now, let's talk about the Minutemen's base, and while they do actually have 30 bases, let's first start by talking about their main base. The Minutemen's main base is Castle Base, an old fort/castle off the coast of Boston. The base has 2 entrances, the front one being surrounded by a plain field of grass that you would have to walk over to get to. And the back entrance is even easier to see people coming, as it is a long open stretch next to water. The base is protected from the left, right and back side because of its water defense, which means it can only be assaulted by air through the front gate or through the very back gate. The base has clean water, running electric, and it even has some weaponry. Now, like I said before, we are looking at the Minutemen at their best in this video, so if this base was fully fortified, it would be near impenetrable in my opinion. I mean, this base would be stacked, from lookout posts to turrets to spotlights to even laser and rocket turrets, plus all the Minutemen who would of course be inside the base. We can see from the mission where the Minutemen defend Castle Base from both a Brotherhood assault and an Institute assault that the Minutemen are good at defending, and I mean good at defending. The base even has a humongous underground section where weapons and supplies can be kept. The base can have a trading outpost, meaning that supplies are always coming in, doctors, and not to mention a huge, or not to mention multiple huge, large fuck-off guns/cannons that can be placed around the base's walls as a self-defense system if the Minutemen choose to use it as that. As these cannons aren't any old normal cannons, they fire the equivalent to 3 to 4 mini nukes, which you can imagine pack quite a hard punch.
Legalize nuclear bombs. Call the fire department. We just nuked the building.
The base in its prime has literally everything a Minuteman could dream of. Well, what about the other settlements/bases? Well, in theory, all of them have the capability to be as armed and as protected as Castle Base itself. They can all have cannons, they can all have turrets, and they can all have armed Minutemen defending them at all times. However, that being said, some may be very hard to defend, and I'm not sure that some would even fare very well against large attacks from raiders, let alone factions. Without a doubt though, one of the most positive things about having so much land is the fact that the Minutemen can control and be in so many places. So overall, I'm going to give the Minutemen a 9 out of 10 for their bases. Or their base. Now, the Minutemen in terms of actual tactics are kind of strange, because they almost operate like the gunners. They clearly have some form of rank system, as the general is the top rank, being followed behind by other Minutemen. This would probably lead you to believe that they fight quite well, like a stylistic military, or like the gunners themselves, but you'd be wrong. There are 2 major ranks of Minutemen, those being farmers, who sometimes fight for the Minutemen, and more are just in the Minutemen so that they can get the perks of being in the Minutemen, and then there are actual Minutemen soldiers, whose job is to protect the people of the Commonwealth and the Commonwealth itself. Now, normally the Minutemen will send their trained forces to fight, which will normally try to outrange their enemies by shooting them with laser muskets from long distances away, and then slowly but surely progressing forward as a group, pushing their enemy back. but this often does not work because the Minutemen are not very well armored and sometimes are often poorly equipped with weaponry. Not to mention, but the Minutemen actually lack in a lot of things like power armor, which give other factions a big boost. And Minutemen soldiers really aren't very good in close range combat, as their laser muskets are so long and big that they have trouble moving them around these short, tight, narrow spaces. And while the laser musket is great, don't get me wrong, it's more meant for long to mid-range fights, not close range, which means they can often get picked off by any enemy with a shotgun, a pistol, or anything shorter range. This of course would often lead to many Minutemen dying, and this might be the reason why the Minutemen fell in the first place. It also makes any idea of the Minutemen being able to do a frontal assault on a faction seem laughably stupid, especially one as well equipped and well powerful as the BOS in Fallout 4. However, the Minutemen fight best when they're united together, defending one area of their own land in the Commonwealth. Give the Minutemen a strong set of defenses, a good group of well-trained men, and some farmers united together to protect their land and their lives, and they will fight well together, especially when you combine the three together. Farmers who really don't want their stuff being taken off them, Minutemen who are trained soldiers ready to protect the farmers and the people of the Commonwealth, and turrets which will blast the living hell out of anything that gets in their way. Now, it's normally at this time, at this section of the video, where I talk about the Battle of Bunker Hill and what the Minutemen did during that, but I can't really do that because they weren't really part of the Battle of Bunker Hill. So we'll move on to their biggest feat, as I think this proves how strong the Minutemen can be tactically in an incredible way. Now, I actually had quite a hard time picking what the Minutemen's best feat truly was, and yes, of course, you could easily argue that the Minutemen's best feat was their attack and takeover of the Institute. However, in my opinion, the Minutemen sustain a lot of losses in this attack, and I don't think it shows off their tactics that well. So I'm going to talk about a different battle. A battle against the Institute or even the BOS on the Minutemen turf. Now, in my opinion, without any doubt in my mind, the Minutemen are best fighting when they are fighting in a defensive area or situation. The Minutemen vs the Brotherhood of Steel, for example, is near a perfect depiction of this. The only difference being the Minutemen this time are the instigators, firing all their cannons at the Pridwin, taking it down in one, the Pridwin being the Brotherhood's massive airship that's in the sky. The Brotherhood, in response, who are reasonably pissed off, send all of their remaining vertibirds to try and wipe out the Minutemen in one foul swoop. But here's the catch. If the Minutemen have maxed out defenses, maxed out well-trained, well-armed, and a good amount of Minutemen soldiers, then they can take out the Brotherhood with relatively no problems in this battle. In fact, in some cases, the Minutemen can be so effective in this battle, the Brotherhood don't even get a chance to land their vertibirds and deploy their men. Now, the Institute fight is a little bit harder, at least in my opinion. However, the Minutemen deal with it much like the Brotherhood, and they deal with it very well. The Institute use teleportation to take down their enemies, teleporting near their enemies and then beginning to fight them immediately. So this means the Minutemen won't just be able to shoot them down before they arrive. Come to think of it, I don't know why the Institute didn't just teleport inside the Minutemen base and then just take them down from the inside, but who knows? Either way, it's irrelevant, because once again, if you have good defensives, a lot of Minutemen, and well-trained Minutemen, they can make it so that the Institute don't even enter Castle Base. To put it quite simply here, we can truly see that the Minutemen work at their pinnacle when they are defending the Commonwealth or defending their land. And yes, you can make arguments that the Railroad are kind of similar, but the Minutemen are truly the OGs for defense when it comes to Fallout 4. And I think this battle just shows how good the Minutemen can be at defending points, and shows how good tactically they are at defending locations. So for all these reasons, I'm going to give the Minutemen a 75% effectiveness on the effectiveness scale for tactics. A leader is very important within a faction. So how does the Minutemen leader do? Well, it's actually a bit difficult to judge the Minutemen leader because of course their leader is, well, the player character. So we're only going to be able to say what we see through a perfect playthrough. First things first, the Minutemen truly seem to respect the general and seem to regard him very highly. The farmers and the settlers within the Minutemen seem to also hold this high regard towards the general. Now I must say, out of any faction leader in Fallout 4, the Minutemen's leader seems to do the most hands-on work, as he not only fights in the big main battles, but he's also always out helping the little guy, helping small settlements fight off raiders, or even just fixing up settlements for the people. And don't get me wrong, this may seem like an amazing thing, because it is an amazing thing, but it can also be seen as a negative thing, as the guy you're getting your missions from, Preston, can almost seem like he has full control over you. However, that being said, hands-on in the Minutemen as a general does seem to work, because not only do all the Minutemen and the settlers within the Minutemen love the general, but they also all seem to know exactly who he is. For all the Minutemen, the General is clearly seen as a figurehead of hope and optimism and the future, and justice for the Commonwealth. However, because the General himself is almost taking orders, this can lead to some major problems. Men choosing not to follow orders from the General without some heavy convincing on the General's part, and this could be a problem as people could lose faith in the Minutemen General and just start doing whatever they want within the Minutemen ranks. One other strange thing about the Minutemen General is he doesn't really plan anything himself. I mean, he gets the final say on what factions the Minutemen are at war with and what factions the Minutemen are attacking, but he himself doesn't plan any major battles or any attacks for that matter. So overall, I'm going to give the Minutemen General an 82% effectiveness on the effectiveness scale for leadership. Now, it's all well and good having strong leadership, but you need a strong chain of command if you want to hold that leadership together. So the question then lies, how is the Minutemen's chain of command? Well, it's interesting to say the very least. Like I said before, the Minutemen do seem to operate almost like a military or like a faction like the Gunners in terms of many things. And ranks is one of those things. You see, the Minutemen at their core are meant for protecting and serving the people of the Commonwealth. Now, with that being said, we can see the settlers and the farmers within the Minutemen as last place in the chain of command. One above the settlers and farmers would of course then be Minutemen soldiers. And from there, you kind of have key people within the Minutemen, such as the Minutemen radio speaker, who lets soldiers and members of the Minutemen know where there's any trouble going down in the Commonwealth that the Minutemen need to be aware of so they can fix. Then you have what I would call the big three. You have Ronnie, who was an old Minutemen officer who leads and trains different groups of Minutemen. You have what I would call the second in command of the Minutemen, Preston Garvey, who I would say technically is an ex-Minutemen leader, I guess. He leads a lot of battles and gives out a lot of orders for many Minutemen. I actually think that yes, the Minutemen's chain of command is very simple, but that does not stop it from working extremely well and efficiently. Everyone within the Minutemen ranks clearly has something they need to be doing or something they're already doing, and everyone knows who they need to talk to get their next assignment or mission, and everyone knows who's in command in general. Get it? So overall, I'm going to give the Minutemen a 90% effectiveness on the effectiveness scale for chain of command. Now let's talk about how the Minutemen compare with a real-life military, but first let's talk about how the Minutemen compare to the modern American army. Now, believe it or not, the Minutemen from Fallout 4 don't really compare to the USA's modern military very well, but they do in one way, and that way is their land. Much like the US, the Minutemen have a lot of settlements/bases all across the Commonwealth, meaning they can stretch their forces out by a lot, much like the US Army can. But other than that, to be honest, the Minutemen and America's modern army don't really compare very much. Now, the Minutemen as a faction might not be a very clean or great comparison to, of course, America's incredibly amazing modern military. However, how do they compare to America's old military? Because I think they compare quite a lot. And yes, I'm talking about the Civil War military of Abraham Lincoln's time. The Minutemen dress like soldiers from those times, have defensive tactics like many of the militaries and armies did back then, and they even somewhat have similar looking weaponry, even though, have it, the Minutemen's weaponry is a lot more advanced. In conclusion, the Minutemen can be a extremely strong faction. One thing that the Minutemen has over every other mainline faction in Fallout 4 is the Minutemen's astoundingly large numbers. In my opinion, the Minutemen could easily steampile through many smaller groups in the Commonwealth and even some large factions just because of how overwhelming the Minutemen's numbers are. The Minutemen can have some serious firepower when it comes to defensive equipment, and if you put the Minutemen in a defendable location or base, or even castle base, then the Minutemen are going to rain hell on their enemies. Even though the Minutemen soldiers themselves may not be best equipped or may not have the best armor, they will still do some serious damage to other factions. The Minutemen's chain of command works strong and is solid, and the Minutemen's leader, the General, is looked up to as a gem within the Minutemen, and for the most part works pretty well as a main leader. In my opinion, the Minutemen can be exploited because of their lack of good or superior weapons to other factions, and certainly their lack of any good armor. But other than this, the Minutemen can be quite a deadly faction. So without further ado, these are the Minutemen's final statistics. Thank you guys ever so much for watching this video. If you've made it this far, I would really appreciate a like, a subscribe with the bell notifications on. I'm sorry I didn't manage to get this video to the 30-minute mark, which is what I really like to do with these Fallout videos, but it kind of makes me realize how little substance there is to the Minutemen. I mean, like I said before, it really does feel like Bethesda focused on the Institute the most, and then the Brotherhood, and then they were like, ah shit, we need 2 more factions, so they shoved in the Railroad, and then they shoved in the Minutemen. So yeah, that's why I couldn't really stretch this video out and milk it any further than I have. Anyway guys, going forward with the channel, I want to explain what should be expected. Every month, you should be able to look forward to a long form review. I have one planned for the end of this month, which will begin its proper editing work in roughly 2 weeks. In the meantime, if you're one of my lovely viewers who watched my Far Cry 4 video and really enjoyed that, you are in luck because I've got another Far Cry video coming out next week, next Sunday. The video will be an analyzation of the side villains from Far Cry 3 with the side villains from Far Cry 4. Even though Hoyt really isn't a side villain, he's a main villain, I'm counting him just for the sake of the video, because I really want to talk about how, in my opinion, Far Cry 3's side villains are much better than Far Cry 4. Anyway though guys, thank you ever so much for watching this video. Stay safe guys, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.